Today we're diving into one of the most celebrated adaptogenic herbs in traditional medicine, Gynostemma pentaphyllum, commonly known as Jiaogulan, sometimes even called the Herb of Immortality in southern China. While it's most famously used in Chinese medicine, Jiaogulan's benefits have caught the attention of modern science, largely due to its remarkable effects on metabolism, cardiovascular health, oxidative stress, and longevity signaling. Its modern discovery is quite interesting. Japanese researchers in the mid-20th century were searching for a ginseng substitute after World War II and found that villagers of the Guangxi province in southern China seemed to live longer, healthier lives. Upon further examination, they found these people regularly consumed a tea from the leaves of a plant in the cucumber family, Gynostemma pentaphyllum. Later, Chinese census and regional health surveys confirmed unusually high longevity past the age of 100 and a low incidence of chronic disease in these populations, drawing scientific attention to Jiaogulan's biochemical and adaptogenic properties. Today, we'll explore Jiaogulan's history, chemistry, physiological actions, and clinical research, and I'll explain how it supports metabolism, cardiovascular health, oxidative balance, immune function, and exceptional longevity. Jiaogulan grows naturally across southern China and Southeast Asia, often as a climbing vine in forest hillsides. Its first mention in modern medical literature came from Japanese phytochemists in the 1960s, who were intrigued by its reported effects on fatigue, metabolism, and longevity. Traditional communities, however, had been drinking it as a tea for centuries to support vitality, adapt to stress, and maintain cardiovascular and metabolic health. This historical usage gave modern researchers a hypothesis to test. Could this vine contain bioactive compounds that genuinely influence metabolism, immunity, and aging pathways? And the answer, increasingly, is yes. Jiaogulan is a chemically rich plant with three major classes of bioactive compounds. Damarin-type saponins, known as gypenosides, a compound class largely unique to Jiaogulan, polysaccharides, and polyphenols. Gypenosides are particularly notable. They are structurally similar to ginsenosides from Panax ginseng, and they interact with multiple cellular pathways including AMPK, mTOR, NF-kappa-B, and NFR2, giving Jiaogulan adaptogenic, antioxidant, and longevity-promoting effects. Polysaccharides support immune balance, while polyphenols contribute to antioxidant protection and cardiovascular resilience. Some of these compounds have limited water solubility, meaning tea provides a gentle long-term exposure, while concentrated extracts amplify bioactivity, an important consideration when deciding how to use Jiaogulan in daily routines. Let's start our discussion with blood sugar because the data here is particularly compelling. One of the most rigorous human studies to date on this subject examined adults with newly diagnosed type 2 diabetes who consumed 6 grams of Jiaogulan tea daily for 4 weeks and then switched to a placebo or vice versa, with each phase measured using a rigorous somatostatin insulin glucose infusion test to assess how their bodies handled glucose under a controlled insulin challenge. What they found was striking. Participants drinking Jiaogulan tea saw their fasting plasma glucose drop significantly by about 34 milligrams per deciliter compared with almost no change on placebo. And these improvements reversed when treatment was withdrawn. Importantly, these improvements in glucose disposal occurred without any significant change in circulating insulin levels, indicating that Jiaogulan was enhancing how tissues responded to insulin rather than simply forcing more insulin secretion. Mechanistically, this aligns with what we see in molecular studies. Jiaogulan, through its actions of its saponins, activate AMPK, the body's central energy sensor, much like exercise or caloric restriction does. When AMPK is activated, glucose uptake and fatty acid oxidation in skeletal muscle and liver are upregulated, meaning the body becomes more efficient at using fat for energy while clearing glucose from the bloodstream. This pathway is highly utilized in many metabolic health interventions precisely because it improves insulin sensitivity without increasing the burden on pancreatic beta cells. Putting these pieces together, enhanced AMPK signaling and improved insulin sensitivity, as observed in this human clinical trial, gives us a deeper understanding of how Jiaogulan supports metabolic health. Rather than simply acting like a glucose-lowering agent, it appears to shift the metabolic response towards more efficient and resilient glucose handling. That's a fundamental aspect of metabolic longevity because chronic elevations in blood sugar and insulin resistance are tightly linked to accelerated inflammation and aging and vascular damage. By helping tissues take up more glucose more effectively, Jiaogulan supports stable glycemic control without pushing the pancreas to overwork, a pattern that aligns conceptually with interventions like physical activity and dietary modulation that we know correlate with longer health span. Jiaogulan plays a major role in lipid metabolism and cardiovascular health. Clinical and preclinical studies indicate that it can lower LDL cholesterol and triglycerides while supporting HDL, and it helps preserve liver function, particularly under metabolic stress. In animal studies, Jiaogulan has been shown to improve the microscopic structure of liver tissue and reduce fat accumulation, allowing the liver to more effectively handle lipids. This prevents adipose cells from becoming overloaded and stressed, which normally triggers inflammation in fat tissue and can disrupt systemic metabolic balance. Importantly, Jiaogulan interacts with the gut microbiome. Its polysaccharides and saponins promote beneficial bacterial populations that produce short-chain fatty acids and regulate bile acids, further reducing inflammation in fat tissue and enhancing insulin sensitivity. Together, these effects on the liver, fat tissue, and gut microbiota support overall metabolic balance throughout the body. Quantitative evidence from controlled animal experiments demonstrates Jiaogulan's lipid-lowering potential when administered alone. In mice fed a high-fat diet, Jiaogulan extract reduced serum triglycerides from approximately 72 mg per deciliter to 50, total cholesterol from 127 mg per deciliter to 101, and LDL cholesterol from 38 mg per deciliter to 23, compared with untreated high-fat diet controls. Similar results were observed in rat models treated with Gynostemma pentaphyllum saponins, showing reductions in total cholesterol, triglycerides, and LDL cholesterol alongside increases in HDL cholesterol, reinforcing its standalone lipid modulating effects. These lipid improvements are complemented by Jiaogulan's antioxidant and cardiovascular protective effects. Its gepenocydes, polysaccharides, and polyphenols enhance the activity of endogenous enzymes like superoxide dismutase and catalase, and also activate NRF2, the master transcription factor controlling antioxidant defense. This reduces reactive oxygen species, prevents oxidative damage to lipids and DNA, and supports long-term cardiovascular integrity. Mechanistically, Jiaogulan also activates AMPK and related metabolic pathways, which increase fatty acid oxidation, reduce lipogenesis, and improve hepatic insulin sensitivity. By simultaneously supporting liver function, reducing adipose inflammation, modulating the gut microbiome, and upregulating endogenous antioxidant defenses, Jiaogulan coordinates a systems-level response that promotes metabolic balance, mitigates chronic oxidative and inflammatory stress, and supports cardiovascular and metabolic resilience, all of which are hallmarks of healthy aging. In essence, Jiaogulan provides a multi-pathway adaptogenic support for lipid and metabolic health. While human data is limited, controlled animal studies provide clear quantitative evidence that this herb alone can meaningfully improve lipid profiles, offering a biologically plausible foundation for its role in promoting cardiovascular health and metabolic longevity. Now that we've explored how Jiaogulan supports blood sugar control, lipid balance, liver health, the gut microbiome, and antioxidant defenses, the next piece of the longevity puzzle is inflammation and immune regulation, because these systems sit at the crossroads of chronic disease and aging. Chronic low-grade inflammation, often called inflammaging, isn't just a buzzword. It contributes to insulin resistance, atherosclerosis, neurodegeneration, and virtually every age-related pathology. One central orchestrator of this state is the transcription factor NF-kappa-B. Persistent NF-kappa-B activation drives immune cells to release pro-inflammatory cytokines, which over time damage tissues, impair metabolic control, and accelerate cellular aging. Research indicates that Jiaogulan modulates NF-kappa-B signaling not by bluntly suppressing immunity, but by helping reset inflammatory pathways towards balance. Pharmacological studies show that gepenocydes and polysaccharides from Jiaogulan reduce NF-kappa-B nuclear translocation in response to inflammatory stimuli, lowering the expression of interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and other pro-inflammatory mediators. This means the immune system is less likely to remain turned on in the absence of a real threat, protecting vascular endothelium, adipose tissue, and neurons from inflammatory damage. At the same time, Jiaogulan supports both innate and adaptive immunity without causing hyperactivation. Studies report enhanced natural killer cell activity, improved macrophage phagocytosis, and more efficient T cell responses under stress. Unlike simple immune stimulants that indiscriminately raise white blood cell counts, Jiaogulan improves immune surveillance while reducing chronic inflammatory stress, a nuanced effect reminiscent of moderate exercise or nutrient-dense non-inflammatory diets, which maintain immune competence while avoiding chronic overactivation. Moving to longevity signaling pathways, two critical players are mTOR and AMPK. mTOR is a nutrient growth sensor. When active, it drives protein synthesis and cell proliferation, which is beneficial in youth or during healing. Chronic mTOR activation later life, however, reduces autophagy, increases senescent cell accumulation, and raises risk for metabolic and neoplastic disease. By contrast, AMPK responds to energetic stress, low nutrient states, or exercise, promoting autophagy, mitochondrial biogenesis, and metabolic flexibility. Jiaogulan appears to tip the balance towards AMPK activation while moderating mTOR signaling. As we discussed earlier, AMPK activation enhances cellular glucose uptake and fatty acid oxidation while simultaneously suppressing inappropriate mTOR activity, promoting cellular cleanup and repair processes associated with extended health span. In essence, Jiaogulan mimics key molecular effects of caloric restriction and exercise, shifting cells from continuous growth towards maintenance and repair. Another critical longevity mechanism involves the antioxidant transcription factor NRF2. Jiaogulan stimulates NRF2-mediated gene expression, increasing enzymes like glutathione S-transferases, heme oxygenase 1, and glutathione recycling enzymes. This enhances cellular detoxification, stress resistance, and resilience to oxidative damage, pathways strongly correlated with longevity. Finally, Jiaogulan may influence neuroendocrine signaling, including aspects of growth hormone and thyroid axes, helping maintain physiological efficiency without excessive anabolic signaling. Animal studies suggest a balanced endocrine milieu that avoids both suppression and hyperactivation, supporting homeostasis across tissues. Taken together, Jiaogulan's effects, balanced immune modulation, reduced chronic NF-kappa-B activation, AMPK-dominant energy signaling, and moderated mTOR activity, enhanced NRF2 antioxidant defenses, and endocrine stability, create an internal environment less prone to chronic disease, cellular senescence, and metabolic dysregulation. These aren't isolated targets, they are interconnected networks shaping tissue aging, metabolic adaptability, and ultimately the number of healthy disease-free years. In short, Jiaogulan doesn't just reduce inflammation or activate AMPK in isolation. It shifts the body's internal operant state towards resilience, repair, and efficient energy utilization, hallmarks of a long, robust health span. One of the most compelling aspects of Jiaogulan is its long-standing association with exceptional human longevity, particularly in regions of southern China, where it has been consumed daily as a simple herbal tea. Populations in these areas have historically demonstrated unusually high rates of centenarians, along with lower incidences of cardiometabolic disease and preserved physical and cognitive function well into advanced age. While traditional observations alone don't prove causation, modern biology provides plausible explanations for why these patterns may be more than coincidental. At a molecular level, Jiaogulan acts on multiple interlocking aging pathways simultaneously rather than targeting a single biomarker. Central among these is AMPK, a master regulator of cellular energy balance. Chronic AMPK activation is consistently associated with improved mitochondrial efficiency, enhanced autophagy, reduced cellular senescence, and increased stress resistance. By activating AMPK, Jiaogulan shifts cells away from continuous growth signaling towards maintenance, repair, and metabolic flexibility, hallmarks of long-lived phenotypes. Closely linked to this is Jiaogulan's ability to moderate mTOR signaling, which drives growth and protein synthesis when nutrients are abundant. While mTOR is essential during development and tissue repair, persistent activation later in life accelerates aging, impairs autophagy, and increases the risk of metabolic and neoplastic disease. By promoting an AMPK-dominant signaling environment, Jiaogulan indirectly restrains excessive mTOR activity, encouraging cellular housekeeping, damaged organelle clearance, and proteostasis, a process strongly associated with extended health span. Oxidative stress management is another pillar of longevity biology, and here Jiaogulan demonstrates effects beyond simple antioxidant supplementation. It enhances the body's endogenous antioxidant defense systems, particularly superoxide dismutase (SOD) and catalase (CAT). SOD converts highly reactive superoxide radicals into hydrogen peroxide, which catalase then rapidly breaks down into water and oxygen. This regulated two-step system prevents the accumulation of reactive oxygen species that damage DNA, lipids, and proteins, processes directly implicated in aging and degenerative disease. By upregulating SOD and CAT, Jiaogulan preserves mitochondrial integrity, membrane stability, and genomic fidelity over time. These antioxidant effects are further amplified through NRF2 signaling, the master transcriptional regulator of cellular stress resistance. NRF2 activation triggers a broad genetic program that enhances glutathione synthesis, detoxification capacity, redox balance, and inflammatory control. Efficient NRF2 signaling is increasingly recognized as a defining feature of long-lived organisms, and Jiaogulan's engagement of this pathway supports long-term cellular resilience rather than short-term symptom relief. Chronic inflammation is another key determinant of longevity, and Jiaogulan's modulation of NF-kappa-B plays a central role. Persistent low-grade inflammation, or inflammaging, contributes to vascular dysfunction, insulin resistance, neurodegeneration, and immune exhaustion. By attenuating excessive NF-kappa-B activation while preserving immune competence, Jiaogulan reduces inflammatory load without suppressing essential defense mechanisms, maintaining a balanced immune environment conducive to healthy aging. Importantly, these molecular effects operate as an integrated network. AMPK activation, mTOR modulation, enhanced autophagy, antioxidant defense, and immune regulation work together to determine whether cells prioritize growth, repair, or survival. Jiaogulan biases these networks towards efficiency, adaptability, and damage control, creating an internal environment that mirrors the benefits of well-established longevity interventions such as exercise, caloric moderation, and metabolic flexibility. Taken together, Jiaogulan's effects across metabolism, redox balance, inflammation, and cellular maintenance provide a coherent mechanistic framework for the exceptional health span observed in populations with long-term consumption. Rather than acting as a longevity stimulant, it functions as a systems-level adaptogen, reinforcing the biological processes that allow tissues and organs to age more slowly, remain functional longer, and resist degeneration. In this context, the title Herb of Immortality is not meant literally. Jiaogulan does not promise endless life. Instead, it supports the biological conditions associated with sustained vitality, helping explain why individuals who consume it regularly often maintain energy, metabolic health, cardiovascular integrity, and functional independence well into their 90s and beyond. In other words, Jiaogulan's legacy is not just about lifespan, it's about health span, the quality of life across decades. Its multi-system adaptogenic and cellular effects provide a plausible mechanistic foundation for the extraordinary health span observed in 100-year-old plus individuals, making it more than a traditional longevity herb in theory. It is a biologically coherent contributor to long-term vitality. So how do you take it? Traditionally, Jiaogulan is consumed as a tea, which provides a gentle exposure to its bioactive compounds. Steeping 2 to 6 grams of dried leaves in hot water for 5 to 10 minutes gives a mild but effective dose for daily metabolic, cardiovascular, and longevity support. For targeted support, alcoholic extracts or standardized powders provide higher concentrations of gepenocydes, enhancing AMPK activation and antioxidant signaling. Typical doses range from 250 to 500 milligrams per day of standardized extract, but starting lower and monitoring response is prudent, as higher concentrations can amplify effects. Some regimens blend tea with occasional extract use to achieve both mild long-term exposure and targeted potency. Jiaogulan is generally well tolerated. Mild gastrointestinal effects can occur, especially with higher doses. Because it modulates blood sugar and lipids, anyone on anti-diabetic, anticoagulant, or cholesterol-lowering medications should consult a healthcare professional before using. Pregnant or breastfeeding individuals should avoid Jiaogulan due to limited safety data. For most healthy adults, daily tea consumption over weeks or months has a strong historical record and clinical support for metabolic, cardiovascular, and longevity benefits without significant adverse effects. Consistency is key. Jiaogulan works best as part of a holistic routine, a nutrient-dense diet, regular movement, good sleep, stress management, and hydration. It's not a standalone, but a bioactive ally that shifts metabolism, immunity, oxidative balance, and repair pathways towards health span and exceptional longevity. Jiaogulan is remarkable because it integrates multiple longevity-promoting mechanisms into a single herb. Metabolic efficiency, lipid balance, antioxidant defense, immune resilience, inflammation modulation, and cellular repair. These effects aren't isolated, they are interconnected networks that shape aging at the cellular, tissue, and systemic level. By combining thousands of years of traditional use with modern clinical and mechanistic research, we can appreciate why Jiaogulan has been called the Herb of Immortality. When used wisely and consistently, it helps the body maintain resilience, balance, and vitality, giving us the potential not just to live longer, but to stay robust and healthy into our later years. If you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.